Today I was like, I'm gonna wear a nice dress to film, and then this happened about 4 seconds after I put it on. Thanks, universe. Hey guys, so I have really missed this channel. I've only uploaded a couple of videos this year, and the gap between this video and my previous video was the longest gap that I have ever had, and I just miss it so much. This gap in my channel has reminded me how much fun I used to have when I was doing a video a week, when I was doing tags and wrap-ups and talking to you guys in the comments and talking about books that I'd actually read rather than just showing off the ones that I'd bought. And yeah, I want to have that back. So today I really want to do a wrap-up, but seeing as the last one I filmed was in November, not really possible to talk about all the books that I've read since then. I have read 27 books since my last wrap-up, and I went through that whole list and picked out the top 6 books which I read and adored and really just wanted to rave about. I did try to get it down to a top 5, but I actually couldn't do it, like choosing between children. The first book that I want to talk about is the most recent one which I read. I only finished it a couple of days ago, and it is The Hobbit by J.R. Tolkien. I remember my mum reading this to me and my brother when I was about 8, and I definitely remember going to an awesome stage adaptation with like puppets and stuff when I was about 6, but I have never actually read this one for myself before. I love this story obviously because I watched and really loved the first 2 movies in the world's most unnecessary trilogy, so it was really interesting to see where they'd added extra things into the movie and then changed characters entirely, and it was pretty rad being able to picture Lee Pace as the Elven King. While I love the story though, the thing which I loved most about this book was the words. Obviously I'm a huge word nerd, I mean that's what I chose to do my degree in, but the words in this book are just, they're perfect. I can't imagine the words being any better. This is a perfect, masterful use of language. Obviously this book is a classic for a reason. The plot and the characters and the setting, the magical worlds are just so fantastic, but I just had an extra level of enjoyment to add on to this book, so it was fantastic and it definitely gets pushed into favourites territory. The next book that I want to talk about is Shades of Grey by Jasper Fforde, and please note the complete lack of the word 50 at the start of that title. Very different book. It's about a society where social class is determined by the amount of and which colours you can see. So purple, being able to see purple makes you the most prestigious member of society, and grey, meaning you can see no colour at all, is the lowest, like the servant class. The plot wasn't actually my favourite part of the book. I did feel it was kind of rushed at the end because I wasn't expecting it to be part of a series because again, my pet peeve, it doesn't say it anywhere on the back. So yeah, that was kind of annoying and it felt really rushed towards the end, but I will definitely be picking up the sequel because the world building, oh my god, the world building. I've always been told that one of the cardinal rules for writing is to show, not tell, and that was done the entire way through this book. Of course, that meant that at some points at the start, I was incredibly confused and I had absolutely no idea what was going on. But with this one, I just figured it out for myself and it felt so much more satisfying. I was really drawn into the world because I didn't understand how it works, so if I wanted to figure it out, I had to keep reading to figure out how it worked, and it sucked me in big time and I read this in a couple of sittings. The next one is a really chunky book and I can guarantee I'm gonna get a sore arm for holding this one up. The Invention of Hugo Cabret by Brian Selznick. This was just so lovely. It's a middle grade book set in Paris in 1931 and it's essentially about a boy, an automaton, and really just the magic and the power that cinema has. It is a hulking great book, but it was a really quick read because more than half of the pages are taken up by these absolutely gorgeous illustrations. They're just these beautiful cross-hatched monochromatic illustrations, and really using these is what made this book such a special experience. Sometimes there'd be illustrations every, 3 to 5 pages, and sometimes there was just big stretches of illustrations that ran for like 50 or 60 pages. And that's what made this book so special. The pictures weren't there to complement the story, they were there to tell the story. It's almost like a mix between a graphic novel and a middle grade book. It's also one of the most beautifully put together books that I've ever seen. It has these gorgeous red end papers, and then the title page is gorgeous, and every page is bordered with black, which is why it looks so cool sitting on your shelf. And this feels like a book that a lot of love has gone into, and I can appreciate that. Do I even need to say anything about this book? I feel like everyone else on the internet has already said anything that I could possibly say about Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. but I just want to throw my 2 cents in there as well. It's fantastic. Apart from the amazing characters, this book just made me so happy. Like, I wanted to throw a parade for it so I could tell everyone how amazing it was. And I want to wrap Levi and Kath up in blankets and protect them from everything so nothing bad ever happens to them again. I will definitely be rereading this book when I'm sad, because this book is just pure, concentrated happiness. And I think to read this book when you're happy would just be a waste of all those warm, fuzzy feelings. The next book that I read is about as different from Fangirl as it's possible to be. Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. I actually didn't enjoy this one as much as I liked the movie, which I know is absolute heresy. But everyone knows there's this big twist in Fight Club, and I just thought that the way the movie handled it was way, way better. It just felt a little bit underwhelming in the book. Sorry. But even with that, I thought this book was just absolutely fantastic, very, very worthy of your time. Since I read this one, I've also read Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk, which I didn't like quite so much. I thought that one was a little bit underwhelming and kind of poorly handled in parts, but I would definitely be reading more Chuck Palahniuk. I'm thinking Invisible Monsters next. Let me know down below which one you think I should read next. And the 6th book that I want to talk about, I don't actually have a copy of because I borrowed it from the library. But the last one I want to talk about is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. If you're like me and have avoided this book for so long, it's about Afghanistan at the end of the monarchy and the lives of 2 children who grew up together, Amir and Hassan, who are separated by the caste system. It was just such a different world from anything that I'd ever read before, and I think that's why it was so important for me to read this book rather than another book by a white middle-class American guy. I had to keep reminding myself that this wasn't a memoir because it was just so heartbreakingly realistic. There's a couple of really, really touching scenes in the book. I mean, the whole thing is fantastic. There's a couple of really full-on bits, and I had to keep reminding myself it's not real, it's not real, it's not real. But then I realized that it kind of is. Even if this specific story did not happen to Amir and Hassan, this story is representative of what happened to a huge group of people at this really important time in history. It's a very, very genuine book, and I think incredibly important if you want to look at the world in a way that's a little bit more complex than you're used to. So those are the best 6 books that I have read in the past 6 months or so. In that time, I obviously read some books which were a little bit disappointing, or in the case of Go Ask Alice, extremely disappointing. But today I wanted to just be positive about the books that I've read and I've loved. I've actually been doing a much better job of using Goodreads this year to actually review books, even if it's just with a sentence or 2 rather than just ticking them off as read and leaving it at that. So if you want to see what other books I read this year, I will leave that link just down below. You can also go yell at me on there, because at one point this year I was 5 books ahead on my reading challenge, and now I think I'm kind of like just on track where I should be. So yeah, go throw things at me or something. That's all for today, guys. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of the books that I talked about. And definitely, if you want to, give me recommendations for other things you think I should read based on what I showed you guys today, because I'm definitely very, very keen to branch out a little bit more. I know I say that all the time, but I mean it this time. I'm keen to branch out. Throw some recommendations at me. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I will see you next time. Bye.